Welcome to the Science of Gratitude podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Valerie Mukanga, and each week we'll explore how gratitude transforms our lives through powerful stories and insights. Let's dive in. Hello, and thank you for tuning in to the Science of Gratitude podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Valerie Mukanga. I have a special guest for you today, Dr. Sherita Gaskin-Tillett. I'm excited because she's a breath of fresh air. And so, Dr. Sherita, would you please actually present yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself, please.
Well, first, I want to thank you for the invitation, Dr. Valerie. Thank you for having me. You are a joy to know. I love you. I love your business. I especially fell in love with the name of your business. Just because it exudes such peace and joy and just everything good. So I just pray for your success in your business. But I am Sherita Gaskin-Tillett. I am an OBGYN by training, but now I've actually transitioned to non-clinical work, and I also host transformative spaces for women who have maybe lost themselves a little bit in their lives in navigating all of the different roles that they occupy, whether it be mother, wife, career person, caregiver for aging parent, whatever it is. But, sometimes we get so caught up in all of our obligations that we lose ourselves. And so I create these spaces where women can come and relax, be poured into and reset and then re-energized when they return back to their space.
Yes, I love it. And I tell you, I've not yet gone to one of the retreat, and that's something I would like to do eventually when I can come up with the time. But I love, the pictures are beautiful. The people who come back from these retreats, they're refreshed. They so highly speak about it. So we'll definitely put some information in the description for the video so that in case you're interested, and I hope you are interested, that you can actually connect with Dr. Sherita. She'll be so graceful to you, and you will love her. So now, Dr. Sherita, I want you to please tell us a little bit, and in your opinion, or how do you view gratitude? What does gratitude mean to you in your own terms?
For me, gratitude is a deep, deep appreciation and regard for something that someone has done for you, or given to you, or sacrificed for you.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Yeah, that's deep. And it's very important to do and in fact, the more grateful we are, the more gratefulness we reap. So when we're grateful and we show appreciation towards people, it tends to become like this snowball where, we get more and more of this positivity being
right.
sown
Right. And I think I think gratitude is also kind of a humbling emotion, because it acknowledges that you don't do anything on your own, that you need other people, and most important, you need God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Beautiful. So, Doctor, would you please tell us a little bit about your gratitude story?
Sure.
I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, well, I mentioned that I'm an OBGYN. So that means at some point in time, I applied to medical school. What most people don't know is that I applied to medical school 3 times. And actually, between undergraduate and medical school, I took some time off to try to figure out if I even wanted to pursue medical school. There's a test that has to be taken. It's called the MCAT. That it's like the medical college admissions test. And so I took that, I think, immediately out of college, and I didn't do so well. I had kind of an uneven college experience. Some semesters were good, some semesters were not as good. And so obviously, to go to medical school, they want them all to be good. And so, so I had that kind of in my counting against me. But I just remember, I wanted to regroup and say, okay, how can I, despite these challenges, despite, my not applying myself the way I needed to, because I think at the end of the day, I knew I had the ability, but I know that my transcript did not necessarily reflect that. And so I had
Reflected.
to ask myself, well, what can I do now that I'm out of college to actually create a portfolio that's favorable to medical schools? So I
Right.
took some classes in preparation for the exam, and then I just remember praying to God, because at the time I grew up in church. I'd always, always grew up in church, but at that time I was away from home. I didn't have a church home, and so I was just kind of, here and there, and not a regular church goer. I always prayed
Right.
and all of that, but I just wasn't connected to a fellowship. And I just remember praying when I was getting ready to take that test again, the second time after I'd done the classes and everything. And I just prayed and I said, okay, God, if I can do well with this test, if you give me what I need, I will give my life back to you. I will give my career to
Wow.
you. And I did well. And as they say, kind of the rest is history. I did have to apply several times because, again, I had to get that, get those scores up. But I was deeply grateful for that. And I've always looked at my career and even what I do now with the women and the retreats as ministry, and just my gratitude to God for blessing me with the ability to help so many people in all these different ways.
Wow. So then you did take the test 3 times and then you applied and you had no issues afterwards.
No, I took the test twice actually. So I took the test,
Oh,
I applied. Yeah, so in between times, so I took the test, I applied, I didn't get in. I took the classes, I retook the test, I reapplied. The second time, I still didn't get in. However, there was I went to Georgetown University. There's a program called the Georgetown Experimental Medical Studies Program. They contacted me
okay.
after the second application and they said, you're too late for this year for this special program, but we think you're perfect for it. So if you apply for it next year and you're accepted, then you're basically into the medical school. You have to do this additional year, but as long as you pass this year, you have a full admission to the next
How,
class. So that's
oh,
how,
okay.
yeah, so that's how it went.
How was your experience going to that program?
It was great. It was great because you lose. I felt like I could do it, but you still, until you get there, medical school is one of these unknown things. You hear so many stories about how hard it is, and the admission is so competitive that you don't know if you can do it or not. I mean, you think you can, but you don't know. And I think that program was exactly what I needed to boost my confidence, because we actually took medical
Gotcha.
school classes along with the other students. But then we had some supplemental
Okay.
classes that we had to do. We didn't do every class that they
Gotcha.
did. And then we had some supplemental
Yes.
things to help us.
Oh, okay. I know from my dental school, there were some friends who did similar programs as well, and then they got accepted. I love it because, sometimes it's not that we're not cut out for something, but it's just that maybe life had happened, or maybe we were ill prepared, or as you talked about, not having full confidence. And that was the only reason, because right now you're a full blown physician. So just the fact that you didn't go right away, did not, thank God, did not deter you and make you, retreat and forget about the whole vision, but you
Yes.
kept going. I
Yes,
have
absolutely.
I have a friend who has gone actually to a program and is kind of in between that, feeling maybe I wasn't cut out for them and for this, vision. And I'm really hoping, I'm going to definitely send this episode to my friend and be like, listen,
Yeah, just
there's
keep
still hope.
going. I
There's
mean,
still hope.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, that's one of the things that I teach with the retreats and other things, is that the reason that we don't succeed when we really have a dream and a goal is because we give up. If we don't give up, we're going to eventually get where we're trying to go.
I love it.
But
So
it
don't
takes that
give up. Don't give
resilience.
Yes. And I'm also thinking that something that also encouraged you, Dr. Sherita, would also be the fact that you were in the program with people who were in the same position as
Yes.
you were. And I'm so
Yes.
glad that they reached out to you, because sometimes we feel like, oh, I might be the only one, who didn't quite make it. But when you find yourself in an environment where everybody else is pursuing the same goal and having faced like the same type of difficulties, like it encourages you knowing, I'm not the only one. We can still make it.
Yes, and it was such an affirming environment because we all supported each other because we knew all we had to do was pass. Like all we have to do is pass, and we're in the next class. And so we studied together. We hung out together for different things. It was really kind of a tight knit group, and I'm still friends with a number of them today.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I love it. I love it. So, Doctor, when we spoke about it, how can people find such programs? I mean, I only heard about it, when I was in dental school, but other than that, I never heard of such programs. Like, if somebody is in that position, like, where do they find that kind of help?
That's interesting. I didn't know about them either until they contacted me. So I think what happened is Georgetown got my application and knew they had this other program. And so they kind of shuttled my application there, said, hey, you may want to take a look at this woman. And so I know Georgetown has actually had two such programs there. And then there are other schools, but they're called post-baccalaureate programs. So I would imagine that if you Google a post-baccalaureate program for medicine or something like that, that I know that there are other, universities in the country that have them, but it's kind of a best kept secret. I'd never heard of it. And each program is a little bit different. Like the one I did gave you a guaranteed admission. There are other programs, even the other program at Georgetown, they had a lot more students, but they only accepted a certain percentage. So not every student that went through that other program was guaranteed a spot in the class.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. So there are different types of program, even for the post-bac programs.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. I'm glad that you got in one that, you just knew you had to pass these classes and
Yeah,
everything.
me too.
So you know what I love about your story is that people oftentimes view doctors as, these super, and I'm not saying that we are not bright, but like these people who never miss on any part of the curriculum. They're always great and all of this. What I love about this is showing that there's a human part in us as well. And what the reason why I say us is because I'm now free to share this, doctor. But when I was after during my second year of my dentistry program, and I had actually had to repeat a semester, and I would never want to share that. The first time that I actually went to be interviewed on someone's platform, and it was talking about overcoming difficulties. And so I'm driving and I'm like, okay, God, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to talk about? And I feel in my heart, you're going to talk to them about the fact that you've repeated a year. And I'm like, no, we're not doing
I'm
that.
not telling that, right?
Absolutely not. Like, I'm not gonna, tell the whole world how dumb I was. No, we're not doing that. And so I feel uneasy. And I had actually a meeting with one of my mentor, who's also a dentist. And I'm like, Caroline, I feel in my heart I need to speak about this. And she's like, oh, that would be so great, Valerie, because then there would be so many people who would have gone through the same experience who would find hope. And I thought about it and I was like, okay, just because you explained this to me this
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
am I going to share? And I did share. And though I said, I did repeat a year, but to be fair, I was not going to be able to practice, medicine if I did not succeed. At the end, I had to pass all my
Right.
tests. I
Sure.
have to I have to take all the board exam and I have to keep renewing them. So the fact that, I didn't make it at that time does not mean that, it would be like a fatal fate.
No, it doesn't mean anything. It just means that life lifed and you were a human being. And I think that
Yes.
it's so important. I love that story because I think it's really important that we take off the mask sometimes. We like to
Yes.
present our perfect selves to the world, but we know the
Yes.
reality is that nobody's perfect. We all
Right.
have flaws. We all have, or can be subject to different things.
Mhm.
So I mentioned that my college experience was uneven. It was uneven
Yes.
because, I was focusing on my social life more than I was my education. you know
Yes.
so there was
Yes.
poor decision making. Yeah, but
Right.
most kids, and college students, they may be over 18, they may be technically adults, but they're still
Mhm.
kids. And we know the prefrontal cortex doesn't fully develop until age 25. So you just
Mhm.
don't make the best decisions always, and you don't
Right.
necessarily realize that you're making decisions that have far reaching implications that can impact the whole rest of your life. And I think,
Right.
that's the hard part, that you're in this vulnerable kind of state where you want
Mhm.
to learn to be an adult, you want to do adult things, but you're not really mentally prepared to fully be an adult. But
Right.
there's consequences to your actions at that
Right.
point. And so I'm just thankful that, there was still a redemption for me, that I didn't have to,
Yes.
because I made poor decisions then, it didn't cancel out the blessing that was to come later.
Yes, I'm in the same position. I thank God for mercy as well, because I remember after I had to repeat that semester, I actually sent for an appeal, and they said no, we would have considered your appeal if you had been removed from the school, but because we're asking you to wait it out and come back the next semester, that's what's going to happen. I just thank God that I was kept, and so there
Yes.
is hope. There is hope, even when it's a dire situation, you can still ask God for his mercy, and he can renew everything. It's kind of like it's like the Bible verse that says all things work
Yes.
together
That's exactly where I
for
was
the
going.
good.
That's exactly where I was going.
Yeah, so I'm very glad about that. But ever since, that happened, I've been free to actually talk about the fact that, I had repeated the year. And I am so glad that that's what you talked about today, because a lot of people, they just lose hope because they feel like they don't meet the mark.
Right, right. But like I said, that's Romans 8:28. That was exactly where I was going. That all things work
Yes.
together for good for those who love the Lord and are called according to His purpose. And so we have to remember to trust that even when it seems hard and even when it looks bleak, that there's a purpose in it, a deeper purpose. So you went through what you went through, I went through what I went through, but really it was to give us a testimony, to encourage other
Yes.
people who find themselves in that circumstance. They may see this
Yes.
podcast and say, those two doctors had some struggles, but they made it. I'm having some struggles,
Mm.
but I can make it too.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And that's exactly what I would want somebody to get out of this episode, is that there is hope. And even the people that you are looking up to, maybe they haven't spoken about it. And I'm not saying that everybody went through the same situation, but some of us did. I know personally of one of the girls that went to my school, and same situation as I. She had to repeat the year because she missed less than 1%, and she
Mm,
was told to repeat. So, but now today she is definitely someone that has started a whole movement for women, African American dentists, where we have a whole forum, and so she's the one who headed that. So just because
yes.
you
Yes.
fail, you can get back up, and you can still be very impactful, very influential. Don't belittle yourself. Just use whatever difficulty you went through as a stepping stone, and you will draw somebody. You will actually pull somebody up higher as well as you're going through that, if you don't give up.
Yeah. Exactly. And nobody's perfect. I mean, if you think about, I often, when I'm kind of down on myself about maybe some of the mistakes I've made or thinking I should do better or be better, I think back to some of the prominent people in the Bible. You know, they all had issues. And I think God did that on purpose so that we would
Yes,
know that he can still use us even, though we're not perfect. Because I was going to say, even if we're not perfect, but no one's perfect. The only perfect one
right,
was Jesus. Everybody else
correct.
had significant flaws.
Significant.
Significant. Moses was a murderer. David was an adulterer and kind of a murderer. So, they had significant flaws, but God was still able to use them.
Yes, I love it. So, Dr. Sharita, I'm going to do something different here. I want to shift gear. I would like for you to please talk to us about, your vision, the vision for your retreat. What caused you to start doing that? Why are you doing it? What are you looking to accomplish?
Yeah, so, I found myself probably about 10 or so years ago. I was a new wife and a new mother and full-time OBGYN. And the full-time OBGYN life is probably a 60 or so hour a week commitment. I added a husband, I added a child, but I didn't take anything away. And so I was trying to be all things to all people. I was trying to be a great doctor, a great wife, a great mother, a great daughter, a great sister, a great friend. And I was drowning. On the outside, it looked like I had everything I could ever have wanted. But on the inside, I was miserable because I was so exhausted. And I felt like I was just failing at everything.
I
And I
see.
really didn't have language for it. I just knew I didn't feel good. And I don't even think I had given it voice. And my husband and I were on vacation. We took a trip and I was sitting on the beach in Jamaica. And it was then that I realized that I was still enough and it was quiet enough that I could actually hear my voice again. And my
Yes.
voice was saying, "This is not sustainable. You are not well." And so I started right there on the beach researching what it meant to be well, mind, body, and spirit. And when I came
Yes.
home, I found a class called Faith Health Ambassador. It actually is a facilitator training class that is all about mind, body, spirit health and the interconnectedness of the three. And so how if you're unwell in any one of those areas, you're not going to be well in your life, that there are going to be problems in your life. And
Yes.
through that course, I just came to have a deep understanding of my value to God and
Yes.
God's kingdom,
Yes.
and the fact that Jesus gave his life for me. And so what I tell people is really my everything I do at this point is centered around John 10:10. Jesus came that we may have life and have it to the full. And I realized that
Yes.
when I was living that way, I was not having life to the full. And I don't want to dishonor that sacrifice by living beneath the things that Jesus died for me to have, living beneath my privilege. And I don't want that for
Yes.
other women. I see it so much in other women too, that we just give and sacrifice, and we don't understand that we are valuable and we're worthy of having an abundant life just like anybody else. But I do
Correct.
the retreat itself because it wasn't until I was out of my regular environment, I was away from my responsibilities, that I could hear and begin to see. And so I
Okay.
seek to take the women out of their regular environment and give them a nice, peaceful, beautiful, tranquil, supportive setting to be able
Yes.
to exhale, reconnect with themselves, hear their own voice and say, okay, what do I want and what do I need right now? What's important to me?
Yes.
Because what I realized for me is that, I told you I had added the husband and the child. My priorities
Right.
changed. When I was single,
Yes.
work was my priority. But as a married
Right.
mother, my priorities had changed significantly. And we have to give ourselves
Exactly.
permission to realign our time and the way we spend it
Yes.
when our priorities change so that we can devote enough to the things that are really important to us. We spend so much time on the things that we quote unquote have to do and not enough time on the
Yes.
things that we want to do. And so I think that
Um,
that's the reason for the retreat, is just to be an eye opener, to say you don't have to keep living this way. You can decide how you want your life to be. But it's hard. It's easier said than done, because there are a lot of stories that we tell ourselves. For instance, I was telling myself, well, I can't do a different job. I can't work less hours because I have student loans that I need to pay. There's no other job that's
Yes.
going to pay me enough to pay these loans. But that was
Yes.
just a story. Had I really done any
Yeah.
investigating? No. And so when I
Mm-hmm.
investigated, I found that there were other jobs that paid similarly and had different kinds of hours. It was a different way of working, a different structure, but it
I
existed,
see.
and it actually worked better with my family life. But had I not had that experience, had I just kept staying, in my own little bubble with my own thoughts, telling myself that there was no other way, I wouldn't be where I am today. I guess I'd still be over there trying to struggle to do it all and
Mm-hmm.
be kind of miserable. And I know that,
Yeah.
again, that Jesus did die for me to be miserable. He wants me to have life and have it to the full. And
That part.
that's kind of my anchor point.
Yes. So during those retreats, like you prioritize rest and rediscovery, what do you usually have the people do that's transformative?
Yeah, so it's half day sessions, and then the rest of the day is for you. And I do that because I'm an introvert. I'm an introverted introvert. So I don't, I love people, but I'm also,
Yeah.
my energy gets drained fairly easily. And once
I see.
I get new information, I need some downtime to try to integrate that information. And so so we do, I call it deep work. We ask a lot of questions of ourselves. There's a lot of journaling exercises we share as, we're led to share. But a lot of it is about you, connecting with you and asking yourself what you want. And, why do you want it, and what's important, and all of those kinds of things. And,
Yes.
and that can be kind of, exhausting is the word that comes to mind, but challenging, taxing, mentally
Challenging.
taxing. And so you have the afternoons off so that you can digest what's happened in the morning, or you can hang out at the beach, or you can go to the spa, or you can sleep or do whatever you want. But
Yes.
there's also lots of opportunity to interact with the other women. And then I always throw
Okay.
in some fun surprises. Like, one of my favorite memories from my retreats is, my Jamaica retreat. I surprised the ladies with a flying dress photo shoot.
Oh,
And,
wow.
I don't know if you're familiar with flying dresses, but I'd seen them in like Greece and I think Dubai, but I didn't know they had them in Jamaica. And so when I
I
saw
see.
that, I got so excited because I'm like, this is it. This is what I'm going to surprise them with. And
Yes.
just to see the light on their faces, because, there's just something majestic and beautiful about those dresses. And there's no way that you cannot feel beautiful in a flying dress. And so,
Yes.
just to see that beauty and that joy on their faces, it just meant a lot to me. And and I
I
think it
saw
just
the
helps to
pictures
underscore the value, that they could recognize in themselves.
in themselves. I saw the pictures. They were beautiful. They were different colors, but the colors
Yes.
matched, and it was so beautiful on pictures.
Yeah, I thought so.
That's
I was just, like I said, I was so excited when I saw it. And so that's kind of my love language, is giving gifts. And
I
so
see.
I showered the women over the weekend with different things, because
Yeah.
we don't always, have opportunity to be poured into in that way. So what I always say is, just get here, and then I've got you the rest of the weekend. You don't have to think about one thing the rest of the weekend.
Yes. Wonderful. Well, I'm grateful. In fact, I'm sure the lady, as we was talking about gratefulness, I'm sure that the ladies were grateful, and you were also grateful that you were able
Yes,
to pour into their lives, and that they
absolutely.
trusted in the vision that God put in
Yes,
your heart.
I am deeply humbled and grateful for that.
Yeah. What are some of the results that you saw, getting on a retreat on the ladies? What
Yeah,
are
so
some of
it's
the
interesting.
beautiful
I
results?
actually did a live session with some of the alums a few weeks ago, and I asked that question because a weekend is only a weekend. It's a long weekend, but still, it's a
Yes.
short period of time, and it's hard to know. You may lose track of people, and it's hard to know what the impact has been. And so I was really moved by some of the things that I heard them say.
Mm-hmm.
One woman talked about coming to the retreat at a time when she was lost. She had two young toddlers, and she wasn't sure how she had a business, but she wasn't sure how she could take her business to the next level and still be
Mm-hmm.
a good mother. And so just being
Okay.
in that space where she was exposed to other women who had high power careers and had children, she said, I walked away knowing it could be done. She said, I didn't know exactly how, but I knew it could be done. And she
Yes.
attended a retreat that was about 18 months ago. And so since
Mm-hmm.
that time, she has gotten another certification and grown her business to the place where she wanted it to be. And she said she credits a lot of that change to her experience at A Weekend for Me. There's another woman who wanted to make some changes in her fitness. And I don't know if she was doing any exercise or maybe minimal, but she recently ran a 5K. And she also talked
Wow.
about it being, inspiration from having done the retreat. Someone else talked about how getting in touch with themselves
Mm-hmm.
makes them more introspective and makes them think more about their relationships. And so this is
Mm-hmm.
someone who's attended several retreats,
Mm-hmm.
and she says she always goes home better, that she interacts with her husband and her child better, that
Wonderful.
it's a richer relationship, so much so that her husband said, you go every year. So, yeah, so I mean, so it's really it's making a difference. And then I've actually launched a membership program as an extension
Mm-hmm.
of the retreat,
Mm-hmm.
because at the retreat, it culminates in you creating a blueprint from where you
Mm-hmm.
are to where you want to be, or maybe I should say a
Mm-hmm.
roadmap from where you are to where you want your life to be. We give
Yes.
ourselves that during that weekend permission to dream, and I think that's
Mm-hmm.
another huge thing that we do as adults. We just don't dream anymore. We
Right.
just accept things the way they are, and that's life. And that's not that we can change, we can evolve, we can
Mm-hmm.
grow. There is no stopping point. It's only what
Mm-hmm.
we put in our own ways, what we tell
Mm-hmm.
ourselves we can't do.
Right.
And so they leave with this blueprint for how to get to where they'd like to be. But you know how it is. You go someplace and you learn a thing and you make a plan, and then you come home and you put it in a drawer and you go back to life the way it was. And so the
Mm-hmm.
membership is really meant to be kind of an accountability to,
Okay.
to preserve the fellowship, but also
Mm-hmm.
to help to keep you on track with the goals. If somebody's saying to you every week or every other week, where are you with your goals? Where are you with this thing? Where are you with that thing? It
Yes.
keeps you in
Yeah.
motion.
Yes. So you might be wondering why, we kind of shifted gear here is because I felt like it would be important to have an insight into A Weekend for Me. Why? Because this is the science of gratitude. It definitely creates great moments that you can be grateful for. As Dr. Sherita spoke about, moments of introspections, moment of, where you are taught how to make goals, moments where you can just be on your own and just reflect. You can be on your own on the beach and just see the value, the beauty of what God created. Those are all moments that you can actually get into, and that would actually enhance your level of gratitude. And so that's why I wanted Dr. Sharita Gaskin to speak a little bit about that, not just, to promote her vision, although we are promoting her vision because I truly believe in it, but it's also one way of seeing, how can you create, moments where you can be even more grateful? Because sometimes you may be lost in the everyday life and the monotony of it. But if you put yourself in another area, like in a different environment, it can actually help you find yourself, and create great moment of gratitude.
Yes, yes. And actually, the science has shown that people
Mm-hmm.
think higher thoughts when they're outside of their normal environment. So even if you're not going on a retreat, if you're just trying to work through a problem, just changing your scenery a bit, It can even be just going outside. But changing your scenery helps to open your mind.
So thank you so much. I absolutely love what we talked about. We spoke about the fact that having failed one time doesn't mean that you're failing always. There's always ways that God can make it work for your good. And don't look at the people that you're admiring and feeling like they never stumbled, they never came across life. While Dr. Sherita said, that the reason why her her grades were the way, or her semesters were the way they were, is because she was focusing more on her social life. In my end, it was because I was actually affected by anxiety, and I didn't even know that I was having anxiety attack. And so even after that semester, I ended up, making myself go into groups where I would study in groups, because while doing that, you're able to get information from others in a way they understand, but you can also teach information in the way that you understand. And while you're able to teach, it's actually making you retain the information better. So all of this is just to say that, the difficulty, or like the what we went through that was seemingly negative actually pushed us and propelled us higher, because now we know how to navigate adversity, and we're grateful for it.
Yes. Yes. Deeply grateful.
So thank you so much. Dr. Sherita, I would like for you to let our audience know, if they wanted to get connected with you, how or where would they be able to find you?
Yeah, so you can find me at Boss Lady Dream Builders. That's the name of my larger umbrella business, on all platforms, except I think I'm not on Threads or Twitter, but Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all Boss Lady Dream Builders. And then my website is bossladydreambuilders.com.
Wonderful. And if somebody was in a position where they were trying to go to medical school, and they found themselves in the same predicament that you found yourself, would that be okay for that person to contact you to have some
Absolutely.
sort of enlightenment?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would welcome that.
Wonderful. And doctor, I would like to, this was so good. I would like to eventually invite you over again. Would that be okay for us to do?
Sure, absolutely. Anytime I get to talk to you is a pleasure.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. So that will be the end of our episode today. No, I know I was going to say, I hope that, but I know that you have been blessed by this episode just as much as I have. So please don't hesitate to subscribe to the podcast, share this episode to whoever you think is going to benefit from it. That would really do us much good. And also don't hesitate to ask questions, to which we will try to answer and direct you accordingly. That being said, until we see each other next time at the next episode, you be blessed and have a great day. And Dr. Sherita, thank you so much for saying yes to coming to our platform. We appreciate
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you for listening to the Science of Gratitude podcast. If this episode resonated with you, please subscribe, share it, and leave us a review. Your support helps us keep spreading the power of gratitude. And until next time, stay grateful. God bless you.